just bright enough to not have to use the in-cabin lights. Some of you guys feel very strongly about that. I tell you something, I've never had a problem so far, but general consensus is if you drive with your in-car lights on, you're gonna get your ass pulled over. Now, I'm not asking for trouble here. I just want to talk about my workout, right? But play. Oh goodness, yeah, knock on wood, huh? But plan for tonight's lift with chest. I have got some, well, not necessarily new intel, but some tips which I have been accumulating, as well as some new form, because the way I've been doing my flies, I kind of like standing right in between the cables so I can have a maximum kind of squeezing tension in the front of it. Whereas in the lift with Urs, he seemed to be a bit more of a fan of taking a couple steps ahead and then having the tension be kind of oh goodness, excuse me, be kind of maximized in the stretch position, right? So if you can imagine, if you've got two cables, a cable is only going to exert force in the direction from where you're holding it to wherever that cable arm starts, right? So usually it feels good for me to do cable flies where I'm standing right in between them, because then the weight gets heavier as I get to the squeezing portion and it gets lighter. Oh, I'm so sorry. In the really kind of stretch position. And that just kind of feels like a more natural movement path. Whereas taking a few steps forward makes the tension a little bit more focused on this stretch position, and then it gets a little lighter at the top, which is most certainly a strength curve of a fly, which I have not been doing as much. So that leads me to believe I should probably change it up a touch. So later on down this lift, I'll try to do some cable flies a little more Kalasinski-esque, which I don't necessarily think is always the right answer, to just copy someone else because they do it this specific way. Especially, I mean, the logic like, oh, this guy's bigger than you, so you have to listen to every tip he says. Usually that argument doesn't always hold water, but for the most part, I mean, it would make sense. And for someone to reach a certain level of development, it would at least kind of make some fucking logic that the way that they've been doing things has been fucking working. But what I've kind of noticed is a lot of my adjustments to my training is not necessarily completely flip turning anything. Oh goodness. It's not necessarily completely like flip turning anything. It's more so just changing things up slightly in such a way that it breaks a pattern that I've been repeating. You know, I think I saw a good chunk of quad thickness. I mean, nothing like insanely major, but more than normal from implementing some more heavy pressing, even just pressing in general, over this last 4-month kind of bulking phase, which historically I've probably done maybe 70-ish, 60-ish% leg extensions, which they do feel good. I mean, I get a really fucking solid quad pump, but I'm missing out on that deep kind of quad stretch, which now I can look back and say, yeah, I've been leaving fucking quad gains on the table, you know? But again, it's you know, it's kind of hard to know you're doing something wrong until you can look back at it from the future and, you know, use some fucking 20/20 hindsight. But same thing with chest. Most of the fly-based movements I do are very squeezing focused, not so much stretch focused. I'm so sorry, I keep yawning. I'm still waiting for the fucking caffeine to kind of hit me. But all that's to say is, if a lot of the cable fly and like the pec deck or whatever else kind of fly movements I've been doing have been very centered on this squeezing portion, like that's who I'm really flexing, and then the stretch is a little bit more of a relaxed state since the weight is lighter, then I gotta flip it around, hit it the other way, which, not to say that one way is absolutely better in every other case, but it is different than what I have been doing. And usually that's the factor I'm aiming for, right? Don't let your training get too stale. Make sure the stimulus that you're giving yourself is always at least as fucking I mean, I know you probably wouldn't expect me to say optimal, but as at least gains inducing as you can fucking get. So that's something I'm going to start changing up with my chest flies, which I don't think I'm going to notice any drastic changes because, over these next 4-ish months that I'm going to be dieted down, I'm not going to really see any new muscular development. I'm still going to get better at, all my sets, technique and everything, and trying to keep my shoulders back and use less front delt. But I'm not going to really notice a difference because when I'm dieting down, I'm no longer growing. All the food that I'm eating is purely being used to maintain the muscle I've already got built while I peel off the body fat covering it up. So really this is just ends up being a good time to try to improve my execution of reps. So what I'm aiming for is every set of pressing, every set of flies, and in between, I want all chest fatigue and as minimal front delt shoulder fatigue as fucking possible, which I have gotten better at, but that's a long battle for me. Frankly, well, you know what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to completely turn the way that you do things just after, one day of hearing some new tips and styles. But that's what I'm trying to work on. As well as trying to stop fucking yawning. Maybe the no car light is making me extra sleepy because it's fucking darker in here than normal. But in 10 minutes, once I park, roll into the gym, start doing some warm-ups, I'm going to be as alert as a fucking, as a lifter with a goddamn regular dose of pre-workout in him should be right when he's about to start his first working set. So I think no point chatting any further. Chest all done. And yeah, I think I'm starting to get it with those flies. Now, that's not to necessarily take away from the one that I've been doing before, but to only do them in that style, now I see the error in my fucking ways, which I never really because usually I guess I've been thinking of splitting chest up into heavier pressing movements to be more so focused on the stretch, and then fly movements to be more so focused on the squeezing part of the rep, right? Because you're not going to be like flexing your chest as hard as possible at the top of a, like a barbell bench. At least not as much as you can feel on like a regular like pec deck fly, right? Obviously with reps like those, you're physically only using your chest to hold your hands together instead of just pushing the weight up, right? I mean, if you're taking a rest during your set of Smith bench, you're not going to rest at the bottom, right? You're going to rest on top. But getting some more stretch focus, especially upper chest stretch focus cable flies like those ones, yes, that is fucking solid. So that is definitely going to be a new staple to be included in my chest days, as well as maybe changing up my pressing style. For a long time, I would do bench with very flared elbows, and today I went a little more flared out with that incline barbell. But at least historically for me, that's kind of me asking for trouble sometimes. And the reason I say that is because the more flared out you're pressing, you've got a lot of new tension all just straight in your rotator cuff. So for me to bench with elbows in a little bit more has felt much just much more comfortable, right? No shoulder damage. Like, I never feel crunchy reps ever since I kind of switched my pressing style. But that is kind of putting myself in a position to almost be doing like a front raise with my shoulders. So that might be causing me to use a little bit of extra front delt than I normally would like to. So a couple angles to look at, because I think with something like a barbell, I don't want to go completely 90 degrees like this. But with machines, I think I might be better off with more flared elbows, like that one set right before that last set of flies. But that's not really the best chest press. It's a little sticky with the cables. So a lot of stuff that I'll change up, which, like I said on the way here, I'm not going to notice an insane change physically until I really start bulking up again after this whole dieting phase is over. But I can still work on the fucking technique and actually feel different parts of my chest. Not only just like stretching, which is normally what I'm kind of thinking about. Like usually if I think of a movement to really feel it, I'm sort of highlighting that flexed position. Like, oh, I really like this chest press. I can feel a really big squeeze. Whereas with triceps, with hamstrings, I'm getting a bit more in tune with feeling the stretch. Like if you watch my tricep or the last arm day and you pinpoint like a couple of the sets of triceps compared to even just 1 year ago, very different execution, much slower, much longer, kind of eccentric, all the way up to just as far as my arm will bend. Whereas I used to just stay in this 90-degree range or less, just pushing the weight around. Now, sure, I have a lot of tension, but yeah, I think I've been really slack on that stretch position, which I'm working on now. But all good things there. Solid chest day with some improved technique, which, you know, you can take a tip so far. You do have to actually apply it to your training. Like those sets I just did felt more upper chest, actual squeezing focused, more than the ones that we actually did when it was me and hers working out together. Because I just had a little more practice. I did a couple more feeler reps. I could actually put myself in a little bit of a different groove. But when I got in that real deep part where I've stretched my arm all the way back out here, I could feel my whole upper chest stretch and have a little bit of like a good sort of burning sensation, which I haven't felt before on my regular kind of flies. So that's something which I need to keep going with. But until then, as long as I'm getting solid pumps and making sure these sets are hard, I have no question about whether or not I'm going to lose any muscle on this dieting phase. At least no more than necessary, which means basically like zilch. But actually this morning I did 34 minutes of cardio, went a little bit extra. I was geeking out looking at all sorts of camera shit. That's something I'm a little bit excited for. Well, you know how it is with technology, right? Not to go off on a totally unrelated tangent, but if you're interested in actually upgrading from just a regular phone to like some kind of dedicated camera for whatever reason, usually kind of social media related, but frankly, looking back at all our like family photos and everything that's in the albums, the stuff that was taken on a real like camera, not just our phones, look way cooler, just way sharper pictures. Plus you get the actual kind of lens sort of blur effect. I think every fucking house should have like the family camera where everybody takes their pictures. Because having your phone is cool, but it doesn't have that same effect, you know. So anybody, this is just for anybody who really gets what I'm talking about. But if you've ever turned on cinematic mode on your iPhone to record video, where it kind of selectively blurs the background, but it keeps you in focus, it's like you're getting close, but you can't beat the physical lens kind of effect. But so what I was going to say there is like, you know, like Apple, like everything, every year they release a new version with slightly more upgraded features, but they don't want to release the perfect camera, or else why buy the next one? So it's kind of a sort of a waiting game there. But no, I mean, if you get, there's a couple that are good, like some of the ZV-1s, sort of like, I don't want to say scrappy, but kind of the like cheaper kind of Sony cameras with a built-in lens. A few of those are actually pretty sweet, right? They've got a pretty low f-stop, so what that means is it'll actually kind of blur the background. So that's where I would look, honestly, right? I mean, don't just jump the gun and, well, if I'm already going to get the ZV-E1, the FX3 has the same sensor. Yeah, come on. Honestly, the ZV-1, maybe ZV-1F. All right, look around. But that's just a little tangent there. But I mean, when I was sitting on the cardio bike, that's what I was doing, just scanning fucking YouTube videos about all that kind of stuff, and it makes the cardio go by like nothing, you know. So that's kind of nice to have a little 30 minutes of dedicated phone time, right? You know, I sound like a fucking, you know, first grader when I say that. But what else are you gonna do? I mean, you are sitting there planted for 30 minutes doing nothing else. So that's an actual good time to sort of distract yourself with your phone, rather than, you know, just do it at home when you were going to do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? So That's part of my argument for the ease of cardio once you actually get into it, is doing it actually isn't really the hard part. Adding it to your routine, that's the tricky part, right? Because to go from not doing something to gradually doing something every day for like 30, 45 minutes, including the drive, it's a bit of a chore. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's not. I mean, that is time out of your day, but I do see the value. So I'm always gonna. I mean, that's not gonna stop for quite a while, right? I mean, even after all this real like bodybuilding focused training is over, and I kind of ease back down into a more normal guy kind of weight, never gonna stop fucking working out, right? But I'm sure. I bet later on down the line, I'm gonna really prioritize my activeness and agility. I bet that's like the classic pipeline, right? Sports to regular just lifting or bodybuilding, and then you get a little older, then you start doing like, BJJ or whatever kind of stuff where you get what I'm saying. But that's for a long time in the future. No need to worry about that now. Post-workout meal, I have a plan. Half pound of ground beef. I'll probably cook a full pound and save the other half for later. Mix in some zero sugar Sweet Baby Ray's. Ooh. Some fat-free cheese from, I think it's Kirkland. Kind of like shredded, which I'm sure is weird in its own kind of way. I mean, they had to put it through some kind of process to extract just the whey and, make it into so certainly a more highly processed food than just like some cheese from your local market or whatever. But I don't know. I don't notice an insane difference. And as long as I'm, eating in a reasonably normal kind of way, right, I hit all my protein from dedicated protein sources. I'm within reason on my, 200, maybe 300 grams of carbs a day, 75s of fats, and it's all from basically normal foods. I mean, I feel fucking sweet. And what I mean by that is like steady energy levels, nothing, no bouncing around, no need for like a huge nap right after I eat a meal or something. Bulking up, that's where I feel a little more lethargic. Because, I mean, if you're in a fucking state of growth like that and you're constantly forcing food down and then internally turning that food into new tissue in your body, I mean, that's a pretty fucking active process. It can take a lot of energy. So you'd think if you're eating a lot of food, you'd feel more energized. But really, it's kind of the opposite, So that's where I think subjectively I like the dieting phase more than bulking in an overall sense. Just because, just kind of feel better. Sleep better. When I bend over to tie my shoes, I don't feel like I'm running into myself, And I'm nowhere near some of the stories I'll hear from guys where they're real open bodybuilders, and like they've got to have somebody else put their fucking shoes on because they can't bend over. It gets pretty fucking crazy, but that's not nowhere near that state yet. I'll get some comments where you guys will say, "Sam, you might need a new car. You're not gonna fit in a Camry." Dude, I got room. Right, I got room for a while. Even when I was 270, this didn't feel like I was really smushed or anything. I'd have to be like 330 to feel like I'm fucking cramped in here. So, like, I'm getting big, but I'm not that big, right? I mean, doors are not an issue yet, which maybe that's just an indicator I'm not going hard enough. Depends on your fucking perspective. But plan for tomorrow morning. Early cardio. I'm actually going to go to bed by or before midnight. I've got a bad habit of letting my sleep schedule kind of loop over itself in a weird sort of way. Just because I'm fucking just because I'm like playing on my phone or something. But yeah, cardio in the morning, and I'm sure I'll end up watching an episode of Dexter too on season 8. Almost done with that. And then back later, which back is a pretty consistent lift. I'm not exactly sure where I'll go, but no matter where it ends up being, I'm fairly certain I'm going to have a fucking lat spread that's going to make me smile from ear to ear, because as I get leaner, my waist is going to get a bit tighter, right? Because like any guy, I mean, everybody's got fat deposits on their sides, lower back, stomach, butt, and then probably the rest of the body's pretty even. So for me to lose another 10 pounds or, yeah, I think just about 10 pounds of body fat or so, or even more, a lot of that is going to come straight out of my midsection. So, I mean, the amount of like fat right on my, separating like my lats from my skin, pretty marginal. But the amount from like the sides of my stomach to my actual like, what would you call them? Oh shit, not serratus. Well, side abdominals, much thicker, right? So once that starts to peel down and get a little bit thinner, then even if my lat spread is actually physically smaller, it's all about that ratio of lats to waist. So it'll look freakier, which that's a good motivator for me, especially once I start to actually having trouble not, putting the fork down because I want to keep eating more food. Knowing I'm going to be at extra dice later, that's worth the extra fucking effort. And if it was easy, then it wouldn't be cool. But I think that's a good finisher. So solid chest day. New, a little bit more experience with that new kind of fly style. Now I get to go home, eat, chill, and repeat. Perfect night for a fucking lifter. So I'll see you tomorrow.